But the thing with uncertainty or adversity, like you never know when it's going to come and knock on your door.
And you never know how it's going to show up. I always had this idea in my mind that I would pursue a career in academia, like, become a postdoc professor and stick to my industry, which was oil and gas. And then to wake up one day and realize that, oh, okay, all of that is suddenly irrelevant now. And that's why I always say, like, everyone who asks me for advice about anything, I'll always go back to self-awareness. What are your values? And connect with others based on your values and alignment of values.
9 to 5 has good vibes, but 9 to 5 with Gary has better.
The only certain thing in life is uncertainties. And yeah, that's what we are going to be discussing today. One of my favorite prayers is the serenity prayer, which goes like, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change those I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So yeah, that's what we'll be discussing today. I have a guest on here. So I'll just switch over. Hey.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
Who are you?
Who are you?
Who are you? How did you land here?
That's a very good question. So my story is quite interesting, actually, and it has really shaped who I am right now. I grew up in the
Maybe let's just start. What's your name?
Amina.
Amina. Thanks.
Yes, my name is Amina, and I grew up in the United Arab Emirates, actually, as a Kenyan expat. I spent my entire life there, and after I actually even went through the whole academic system there. So that was KG all the way to a PhD. And then after graduating, I got a job and I was just waiting for my visa to come through, only for someone to tell me that your visa has been rejected.
Oh, no.
And I had to pack 3 decades of my life in exactly 3 weeks.
Oh, they gave you 3 weeks.
I think they gave me a month.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to get out.
You just wanted to get out.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, and what, like, I can imagine that had an impact even to your family. How did you,
The impact of that, first of all, there was the shock
Yeah.
of not knowing. The interesting part was that there's a part of me that already was thinking that this could happen. And maybe it was just the probabilistic thinking that I tend to do, like what's the probability of something like this happening. And I had a checklist, actually, for if this happens, my visa gets rejected. And for those 3 weeks, all I did was follow the checklist. I step number 1, sell my car. Step number 2, pack my belongings, send them to Kenya and things like that. So I didn't really register everything until I landed here.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So I land here and it's election year, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Like I felt first, as I said, there was a lot of shock, but then I just got into, is it like looking forward mode? I'm like, okay, so what next? I have to. I have to make a living. I have to figure this thing out. And my PhD was actually in oil and gas, which made sense for that country.
Got that country, yeah.
So I come here and all of a sudden I'm overqualified and in a degree that didn't make sense for this country. So I just had to find a way to figure things out. And I mean, this is later me reflecting on that, but I've learned that when it comes to adversities, you just take every adversity as an opportunity to level up.
Yeah.
So if an adversity hits, you're like, okay, congratulations. It's time to level up. And it's how we respond to these things, right? And being a researcher and a person who reads a lot, I actually spent so many, maybe a few months just reading on the topic of what to do in such situations, like career pivots, and trying to apply some of these in my life. Into my life, exactly. And then, and yeah.
Was there a point when you got the news where you were like, you tried to fight the system or question why was my visa rejected? Or did you just like go ahead and just like, well, I accept? Is there a point here?
That's an interesting question because I just accepted it as it is. Because it has happened to people I knew from before. And I knew that some of them had tried to, again, ask questions and stuff like that, and they never got the answers.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not going to go through that process.
And you just accepted and moved forward and had a plan.
Yes.
Okay, interesting. So you've accepted this. I guess you've talked about you have a checklist. But the thing with uncertainty or adversity, like you never know when it's going to come and knock on your door.
And you never know how it's going to show up.
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
But then I feel like there are principles by which you have to live your lives and the values that you live, and it all comes down to your own self-awareness, right? Like when you are being very aware of who you are. Let's say again, I'm going to talk in this because in this it's career
workplace,
workplace,
career.
yeah. So you just start to identify all of the things that make you who you are, and then see what your values are, what your skills are, what your strengths are, and then try to build life using that while being flexible on how it's going to look like. So I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
So I can imagine, did you sit down and be like, this is Amina, this is who I am, these are my values, these are my strengths? And did you do that at the point you got the news, like while you're in shock?
Oh, no, it was after.
It was after.
Of course,
okay.
after. It was the shock period where I did not react. So that's maybe the 3 weeks where I had to do everything. I was in go mode. Yeah,
in just
go mode.
flight mode.
Flight mode. And then there was the landing here part. And then I think it was like 5 weeks after the news that it hit me that, oh my God, this is the first time I did not book a return flight. Because every time I come to Kenya, it's a return flight, right? And that's it. That's when I cried. I was like, okay, this is real.
Yeah.
But the interesting part is that it actually made me question a lot of things about myself, because until then I was a student. I was a student in academia. I always had this idea in my mind that I would pursue a career in academia, like, become a postdoc professor and stick to my industry, which was oil and gas. And then to wake up one day and realize that, oh, okay, all of that is suddenly irrelevant now.
Yeah.
That's when I started to, as I had said, like I started to read a lot of books, and then I'm like, okay, let me go back to the basics. What is it that I want right now? I want to go back to making a living. Do I want to stay in this career? I was like, okay, no, let me be flexible. What are my skills? I know I'm a good researcher. And
how did you know you're a good researcher?
I mean, PhD is research.
Just research. Yeah.
And then I even treated the whole coming back, the first 4 months as a research project in a way, because I spoke to a lot of people trying to understand what's up and coming in the country, what's going to be suitable, how can I transfer my skills in something that will make sense in this country.
Okay, cool.
So I did...
Where did you find these people to talk to and ask this question? I guess yeah.
So this is interesting because I started out cold messaging people on LinkedIn, seeing people's profiles, and then saying, hey, your profile seems interesting. And basically, it's, the cold messages. And then the success rate was something like maybe 2 out of 10 would reply. Yeah, it wasn't this. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That's actually good.
Yeah. For LinkedIn, usually like when someone messages you, like, I'm not. Yeah.
So that's how I started. And then I would go to meetups.
Meetups, yeah.
Yes, meetups were good. I have meetups. Yeah. I would go to those, and then I'll just meet people for coffee. And let's just say I was hyper caffeinated during that time.
Yeah.
But I met a lot of people just trying to understand, okay, what's happening in the market. And what's also interesting is how I after a few people, others would refer me to others. So it started with cold...
that network effect.
Yeah. It started with cold messages, but after a few months, it was no longer that. I just, I would get referrals, talk to this person, it's really interesting. And that's the journey.
Okay, so with your networking, did you, how did you approach it? Did you network up? Did you network sideways? Do you network down?
That's actually an interesting question. I don't think I was that intentional about where that person was at even now. I do have a process for networking, and I make sure that I network with people at all stages, because from my own personal experience, I got the most value by networking down, actually. Like
I agree. Yeah.
Because when you network down, and sometimes I do a lot of mentorship for young professionals. So of course they're going to grow, they're going to go to other companies, and they're going to remember you.
Yes,
right?
because you've made such an impact in their life.
Exactly. Yeah. So at that time, I wasn't very intentional, but now I intentionally make sure that it's all over.
It's all across.
Yeah, all across. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
And I know you consider yourself an introvert, or maybe
Very.
I guess, like, how do you break that shell and navigate this personality trait that tells you, you know, like if you're in a situation of adversity, how do you not hide in that shell and just say, like, actually, I'm going to come out and
You know what's a strong motivator? It's being hungry.
poverty. Yeah.
Like, okay, so yes, I used to use introversion as an excuse for a lot, for you know, like for not going out and things like that. But when I came here, I realized that, oh my God, it took me a whole lifetime to build my network in the UAE, and all of a sudden, like, you know, yeah, exactly.
Back to zero.
So I was like, I don't have the luxury of, and also I built my network very organically in universities, in right, like exactly. And then I come here and I'm like, okay, I do not have the luxury of all of that. I don't have the luxury of time, and also I don't have the luxury of, again, the places where I would meet. So that's why I was very intentional about it, and that's where, again, I feel like the books helped, because there were so many ideas that I would incorporate. Like, again, having informational interviews with people was a big one. Having a target was a big one. Like, every month, this is the number of new people I'm going to meet.
Oh, wow.
And yeah,
that's being very intentional. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I turned it into a process, which is funny because, I mean, I did my bachelor's in chemical engineering or process engineering, and I was like, let me see if I can systemize this. And then I would just stick to the process. I was like, I don't want to do this. My motivation is saying, like, stay home. But then, like, this is the process. Stick to the process, right?
Stick to the process.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Another thing was managing energy with introversion, because I feel like we use it a lot to avoid these things. But introversion is only a matter of, it's a matter of managing your own energy.
Yeah.
And so if you know, like, okay, I'm going to meet someone in the afternoon, just make sure that you're not, like, in social events in the morning.
In the morning,
like,
yeah. Yeah, because I don't know, I think I do consider myself quite introverted, and, like, external or social events really take a lot out of me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I need, like, weeks or a month just to be like, no, I don't want to see people, I don't want to deal with people. Yeah, I think maybe in a social setting, an extrovert wants to be, like, out there, but there comes a time when you need to recharge.
Exactly.
But I love how you said it is mainly energy management.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Because I feel the way I would manage it at the time, maybe 2 meetups every month. And then from
That's a lot. Oof.
But then from the meetups, you're having, like, you connect with a few people, and then having one-on-one coffee chats.
Yeah.
So that would be, like, again, would it be like maybe 8 people per month? But still, like, you keep on going and
You keep working on it. Do you still have that energy? Do you still do that? Like, right now, you're in a very good place. Do you still keep up with, like, that networking? And
interesting enough, yes.
Okay.
I manage it to 2 times a week, and
Wow,
very
really?
specific timings.
Yeah.
So that's like, so my calendar is fixed at that timing. So if someone wants to meet me, that's the time and the location.
that you're available. And the location as well.
Yeah.
That's very controlled.
Yeah. Again, and it's interesting because the time and location are during the week before work. So it could be like 7 a.m. and not many people would have the energy for
to
that,
do a
right?
7 o'clock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because the weekends I would want to just
Chill.
Exactly. I consider this as, like, it feels like work to me, so I wouldn't want to meet anyone over the weekend.
Okay. And you've mentioned a bit about, like, some books that have helped you get through these uncertain times, the points of adversity in your life. Maybe if you can give me your top 3 favorite books.
So there's Quarter Life. Is it Quarter Life Breakthrough by Adam something?
I'm sure we'll look it up at like point, yeah.
There's Pivot by Jenny Blake. Oh, that was very practical. I love
Pivot.
Pivot,
Yeah. Okay.
By Jenny Blake. And then there was, I'm trying to see, was it, there's Choose Yourself by James Altucher, which I liked because his idea was that, like, we used to live in a world where there are so many gatekeepers, and I felt like for me that whole situation with the visa.
Still live in a world where there are many gatekeepers, I think.
Okay.
I don't know. I think
no, but then he basically, his messaging empowers you to like, choose yourself and try to get beyond the gatekeepers in a way, right? And sending because he was talking mostly, I think, in the creative space.
Yeah.
Like, instead of going through all these music directors, like, just put yourself on YouTube or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So that was his message. So choose yourself. And I think the way I interpreted it was that whole idea of, like, it felt to me the whole visa situation was a gatekeeper situation.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
Classic.
And so many people were like, oh, why don't you apply again? Why don't you apply to another country? You have like all these degrees. And I was like, at this moment, I don't want, the whole visa thing to be an issue. Another issue to overcome just to get a job. Let me just, again, choose myself.
Choose yourself.
Yeah. And then the first one, I think it was called Option B, by the author of Lean In, Cheryl. Yes, yeah, exactly. So that was another one that helped.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay, yeah. So I guess for the audience watching those four books, we'll look them up. Yes. And which one do you think was your favorite, or like your biggest lesson or your favorite?
I think it was Adam Smiley's, because it actually made me rethink the whole career thing. Because again, his idea was I don't know, I wouldn't say I remember all the messages, but again, the message that I still
stuck with
me is how careers are no longer linear. It's all about jumping on, I think he called it lily pads or something. So and basically building your portfolio and things like that. And I guess that was very important in how I thought about myself, because at the beginning I just started as a random consultant doing the most random things. I would do content creation. I would write long reads for people, like ghostwrite long reads, and yeah.
Okay, interesting. Was there ever a point? Because I mean, from what you've said is your story, you are very accomplished. Like you have a PhD, and then people, or even sometimes family and your friends, have these expectations, like, of what they expect your life to be. Oh. And then this happens. And then, like, I think sometimes when you're going through adversity, you have to manage other people's expectations. Or sometimes just ignore it and just be like, as you said, choose yourself. Can we talk through, like, professionally what that looks like, for you?
Like, managing the expectations of the people around? Okay, that's very interesting, because I still remember how so many people would tell me, like, oh, you have to be a professor and things. And I mean, part of my research at the beginning, I spoke to a few professors in Kenya, and it was like, I don't mind academia and being a professor, just not in this country, unfortunately. Like,
oh, really? Why not?
I heard a lot, let's just put it that
You
way.
heard a lot when you did your,
Yeah, and it was not aligned to, again,
values.
Who I was as a person. And so I was like, this is going to make me suffer.
Definitely, I'm here to enjoy life. I'm not here to suffer. I'm not here to
You did not come here to suffer. I feel you.
Yeah, so I was like, let me figure out something else first, and then I'll think about the academic route somewhere along the line. And then,
so do you,
okay, wait, going back about managing expectations.
Yeah.
I think what benefits me a lot is the fact that I don't listen to anyone. Like, okay, I would hear what everyone is saying.
Yeah.
But I'm a very stubborn person.
You're stubborn,
yeah. So I'll just say, yes, okay. And then
make your own decisions.
I'll make my own decisions, yes, exactly. Because I feel like, especially in our communal societies, like, if someone's not paying your bills, then
they have no.
Then why? I mean, you can say, I will listen, and then I will consider
reflect
it,
and,
reflect,
yeah,
and then
just
see
make a
what works.
decision.
Yeah, what works for me. Yeah, exactly. So there's that. So, but then the pressure, of course, the pressure was there, and there's a lot of, like, people talk a lot.
Yeah.
But you just learn how to and also once you start seeing results in your own life, you like you stop listening to others.
Because you're like, it looks like what I'm doing is working.
So, exactly.
I may not exactly know what I'm doing, but it seems to be working.
No, and I wouldn't say I'm not like that. That line might not always be true because the how of, okay, yes, how things look at the outside might be different, but the how of how I lead my life, it's very aligned to who I am as a person. So again, going back to values and things like that. And my top one is learning, for instance. And I'm like, okay, as long as I'm learning in you could also learn from failures, right? So,
absolutely. Those are the best lessons the lessons you get from failures.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as long as I'm in alignment with my own values, it's like the rest doesn't matter.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I guess we've talked through knowing your values. The books have helped you, like, again, always just using those values and just shutting off the noise that sometimes comes with adversity. Anything else? Any other tool that we can put in that toolbox of, like, uncertainty? Like,
I would say, okay, so there's the self-awareness, there's building your own social capital, and also being sincere about it, because I was reflecting a lot in terms of the quantity versus quality. And I did realize that at the beginning I was going more for quantity because, again, the goal there was to figure out what's happening. So the more diverse the voices, the better. But then when it came to actually, like, let's say, nurturing your own network or the people around you in terms also social circle and just in general, quality would matter more, and never be afraid to just end things when it's not working out, right? And quality, again, basis of alignment of values. And that's why I always say, like, everyone who asks me for advice about anything, I'll always go back to self-awareness. What are your values? Align on values, and be who you, like, show up authentically, and connect with others based on your values and alignment of values. And then there is confidence, actually, which I thought this was interesting. Talking to a lot of people in Kenya, especially the young people who just graduated from university, I felt like confidence is a major issue.
The lack of confidence.
Exactly. Yeah, because I feel like people reject themselves before they're even rejected. And so, yeah, again, so one toolbox is don't reject yourself before others reject you. Like, give them that job. I
mean, I'm interested to dig deeper into what you mean by don't reject. What does rejecting yourself look like?
So the way I saw it, so as I said, I mentor a lot of people, and the way I always see it show up is how, let's see, a very classic example. There's a job description. They will be like, oh, I only have 7 bullet points in the requirements, but I don't have the other 3. Let me go and upscale in the other 3, and then I will apply.
Oh, then you'll apply.
Yeah,
gotcha,
and I'm
gotcha,
like,
gotcha.
so why are you rejecting yourself before the other?
Yeah.
Again, the HR on the other side is not even seeing your CV because you have done all the rejection. And it shows up a lot, actually, in, like, people not putting their foot forward when it comes to things, people not speaking up. When it comes to, because they're always waiting for that. Is it like they're just waiting?
Some form of validation.
No, and I think there's an expectation of, I want it, like, I'm going to put my foot forward if I know that 90% I'm going to succeed. Right? Like, and I feel like confidence is not, it's not about knowing that, okay, I'm going to succeed. It's more about like the willingness to try. Yes, exactly.
I think willingness to try, being okay with the outcome. And so also, like, a level of, are you okay to be embarrassed? Like, I always tell people, be comfortable of embarrassment, like, because it's there.
And there's analysis paralysis.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think
that is so true.
And that's a big one especially for people who are, like, by profession researchers, like, let me research this some
More.
Exactly. So I think for these things, and that, again, it's also a problem that I had to overcome for myself.
Yeah.
So,
As a researcher, interesting.
So it's like you have to give yourself a deadline that, okay, at this
So you
time-
actually give yourself a deadline.
deadline,
Yeah.
yes. After this date, I'm going to take, because one thing I've learned is that when it comes to things that where you're seeking, let's say you want clarity on something, clarity does not come from your thinking. It comes from taking action and seeing how that action, like what happens when you do that.
Yeah.
And then using that as a data point to
Make and iterate or make a
exactly.
different decision. Interesting.
So clarity comes through action, not through the analysis paralysis. So for me, because I know it's one of my biggest like downfalls, I'm like, okay, for every decision you have a deadline, and that's it.
Yeah, interesting. And how do you know how much is enough time to put on that deadline of, like, I want to spend X amount of time doing the analysis and like, what's the fine?
Does it depend on the nature of the decision?
magnitude of the
decision? Yes.
Yeah, because you don't want to be too fast to make a decision, and it can,
Exactly.
like, destroy your life. Cool. Any other points you wanted to touch on?
I would say a lot of, like, I had to go through a lot of mindset reframing when it comes to all of these things. Like, one of them is what I had mentioned about whenever an adversity hits, you're like, okay, this is an opportunity to level up. Like, what are we going to do to level up? And taking action to actually level up again.
Yeah.
Reading, meeting people, asking questions, and trying to figure things out. Another thing is, like, you keep on saying, oh, why, or at least I was at the beginning, I was like, oh, why me? Like, instead of...
The pity party
Exactly.
victim.
But then it's about, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this experience? What lessons am I going to move forward with? And then...
I mean, it takes a lot of grace to... There was never a point you're like, why me? This sucks.
Of course.
Let me
Yeah,
cry
I mean-
in the corner.
I mean, that's the thing. It has to happen.
It's
just, I feel like over time, the time between when you, again, like, the moment when it's like, oh shit, now what?
Yeah.
Right? A moment. And then, okay, what are we going to do about this? I feel like over time it's been getting shorter and shorter. So
That's really good to
So
know.
that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And then again, it's also going to be directly proportional to the magnitude of the adversity, right? So for me as a person, especially since I realized that I did not really process that thing well, and then it started to affect me later in how I showed up in life. I was like, okay, so I need to take some time to process these things whenever they happen. So you do have to give yourself time, grace to properly process such events. And that's why I'm a very big advocate for therapy and, mental health. And
Mental health therapy and talk therapy and speaking
Exactly.
through things. Do these adversities kind of create, I mean, like for me, like they create anxiety, and then anxiety is just like the unknown of the future. Like, that's one definition of it. How do you manage that? Like, say something else can happen or...
Oh, so yeah, that's interesting. I remember reading about how anxiety happens when, like, uncertainty is so much bigger than... when uncertainty is so much bigger than your ability to cope.
Exactly.
So basically, to manage that, you just build your ability to cope, and that's...
So you need to know how do you cope?
You need to know, like, and also have some previous history, right? Like, when you go through a lot of things, you're like, okay, so I have... Sometimes it actually helps to put down a list of all the things that you had to go through.
Yeah.
In order to remind yourself, okay, so I went through this, I went through that, so I'm just going to be fine. Like,
I have like I guess it's a journal, like where I'm like, this is all the hard shit I've gone through life.
And then
like when you're like going through more hard stuff, you just have a look like, I mean, I went through that. This by magnitude is much small. I can push through it.
Right,
That's I know that's one of my coping.
Oh, so actually having that, again, written down, visible.
Yeah.
Just so that you can, because when the shock happens, you wouldn't be in the frame of mind, right? Like,
you
actually
don't
sit
know.
and think.
Yeah.
So just having that, and going back to, like, positive mindsets and things like that, and just telling yourself it's going to be fine. Yeah.
It's gonna be fine.
It's gonna be fine. That's where resilience and grit come from, right?
Yeah. Okay, cool. And you, when you work with like younger people, when you're mentoring them, I don't know, I have a perception that sometimes they lack that resilience and grit. That is Wangari personally. They may be, you might have a different viewpoint, but like, how do you mentor or coach like resilience and grit? If you've ever experienced it, just curious.
That's interesting in terms of like coaching them on that.
Yeah.
Because when I mentor young people, sometimes I feel like all they need is hope in this world, in this economy. They just need someone to tell them that, it's going to be fine.
And money.
No, I mean, for coaching, it's just like,
Yeah.
No, but I mean, one of the things like they seek is hope, knowing that it's and also like believing also in themselves. So I feel like it always starts with them. At least the way I mentor people, it always starts with a mindset shift. But then when it comes to resilience and grit, like I feel like life is supposed to be your teacher there. Like
Your life is meant to teach you that.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting take. I don't think I have any other questions, unless there's something you feel like we should really touch on, speak more about.
No,
But it's been really good.
Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah. Any last parting shots, thoughts?
I would say, let me see. Don't reject yourself before others reject you. I think that would be, don't reject yourself. Like, give everyone else that job because also like people would say mean things about you. People let them do that. Like, why are you doing it to yourself? So be kind to yourself and don't reject yourself.
Awesome. Perfect. Cool. Thank you. Thanks for listening. I hope, this conversation has given you some really good nuggets when you are dealing with those uncertainties, because uncertainties are pretty certain in life. So, don't forget to share, comment, and click that subscribe. Until next time, Kwaheri.